Sometimes some of our other family members they practice the Chinese traditional thoughts and stuff. And if we ourselves as a Buddhist, how do we strike a balance between us and our family members and among create a peaceful atmosphere?
You can try to educate them without hurting their feelings. Like for example, sometimes some of our Buddhist members, they say their mother passed away and they want to hold a Buddhist funeral. But all the brothers and sisters want to hold a Taoist funeral. So I think let the majority decide. Yeah.
I heard about the mantra, right? Is it a Buddhist practice?
Just now I just explained it. It is not a Buddhism. It all came from Brahmanism, Hinduism.
So is it so it's not a Buddhist practice?
There are a lot of things that Buddhists practice now which are not found during the Buddha's time.
Actually, few days ago, my grandfather is about to pass away. Then my family there decided to have the Taoist funeral. Then as a Buddhist, should I avoid the Nalo meeting or I can join in or not? Actually, I really want to say that you respect your grandfather.
You try to avoid, but without hurting without hurting other family members. If they insist that you join, then you join. It's just like sometimes somebody in the family becomes Christian, and then when there's a funeral, they don't want to hold the joystick and all that. Sometimes it hurts other people. So nowadays they are more relaxed on it. Sometimes they will hold. So it's important not to hurt people's feelings. Yeah.
Saying that mantra is not from the Buddhism, right?
Yeah.
So, for instance, got a lot of monks they are telling us that if you want to offering the food to the gods, then you need to use some mantra. Then when in some ceremony, then you need to use some mantra to train the gods, the spirit. So
you want to follow them, you have to use them, but if you want to give some food to the ghost, you don't need mantra. You just mentally tell the ghost to take the food, he will take the food. You don't need any mantra. For example, if somebody does black magic on you, and then at night the ghost come and disturb you, what to do? Here's one suggestion. If the ghost disturb you at night, you offer some food, you tell the ghost, don't disturb me, I give you this food, you go out and eat, and you take out to the road there, I put by the roadside, you ask you eat here, you don't come into the house. Then you will go and eat there.
So everyone, is there any question? Now we like to thank Bhante for giving a bit of his time to explain to us about this Chinese tradition and Buddhism. So now
Sugato lokawidu anuttaro purisa Dhamma sarati.
Okay, tonight the talk is on compassion. Now, if we look into the dictionary, compassion, the word compassion means being moved by the suffering of others and wanting to help alleviate or reduce the suffering. So, in other words, there is suffering, and then we want to help other beings. Now, this word is quite closely associated with another word. Now, this word, compassion, in Pali is karuna, and it is quite closely associated with metta. Metta, or loving kindness, means kindness in our actions, speech, and thought to others. In other words, we want to make others happy. So, in the absence of suffering, we want to give happiness to other beings. So, it's slightly different. Compassion is there is suffering and we want to help. And in loving kindness, when there is even no suffering, we want to give happiness, and it's more positive kindness. Now, Buddhists are well known for being compassionate, for being harmless, for harming any beings, right? But unfortunately, it is not so well practiced. And we find that Christian love is quite well known, because a lot of Westerners, they go out of their way to help other beings, even animals, right? But actually, when we compare Christian teaching and our Buddhist teaching, our Buddha stressed on compassion and loving kindness even much more than Jesus. In the Bible, Jesus said, if somebody slaps on the right cheek, you turn the other cheek for him to slap. That's pretty difficult to do, and most Christians won't do it. But in the suttas, in the Kakusanda Sutta, the standard the Buddha gave is even higher. The Buddha said, if you are caught by bandits and they saw away your arms with the two handles, long saw, they sawed away your arms and your legs. And if on that occasion you got angry, then you are not practicing the Buddha's teachings. That's even more difficult, isn't it? So, in other words, the Buddha is trying to tell us that we should have loving kindness towards all beings, no matter what. And this we can only practice if we understand the law of karma vipaka, that whatever we get is what we deserve, nothing more, nothing less. So we understand the law of karma vipaka. Whatever comes to us, good or bad, we accept it. Especially bad, because it's very difficult to accept suffering. But we should bear in mind that if we don't accept the suffering that comes to us now, it will come to us later. So that is accepting Dhamma. Now we must differentiate Buddhist compassion from the compassion practiced by other teachings, external sect teachings. Because our Buddhist compassion is always with wisdom. It always comes with wisdom. If you want to practice compassion, you have to practice it with wisdom. Wisdom is a very important factor. Otherwise, we are not practicing really beneficial compassion. So the Buddha mentioned in the suttas how external sect ascetics practice the various external sect practices, and among them he mentioned the compassion practices of the external sect ascetics. For example, the Buddha said, if an external sect ascetic goes on Pinabat, arms round, and he's about to accept food from somebody, and then he sees a lot of flies around. And then he thinks to himself, but this is not mentioned, he probably thinks to himself that if he accepts the food, then the flies will not have enough food to eat. So he refuses to accept the food upon seeing the flies, and he walks away. And then on another occasion, when he's about to accept the food, he sees dogs around. Also, he refuses to accept the food and walks away. Probably for the same reason that he thinks by accepting this food, the dogs will not have enough food to eat. And then another time, if he's about to accept food from a woman who is suckling her baby, and then he sees that and he refuses to accept, probably thinking that the baby may not have enough milk to eat. So this is practicing compassion without wisdom. And then it's maybe surprising to some people, the Buddha also mentioned among the ascetic practices of external sect ascetics, vegetarianism, that they refuse to accept meat and fish. So this may be a bit hard for some people to understand, but I will try to explain later. But we can see that external sect ascetics, sometimes they practice vegetarianism overboard, over the hill, like these Jains or Nigantas. Many years ago, when I was a young university student, I had a friend who later married, and then the father-in-law was a doctor from Burma. But in his young days, he practiced in India, and he said that he was called to a house one day to see an old lady. And when he went into the house, it was apparent to him that this was a rich family. And when he examined this old lady, he found that she was suffering from malnutrition. So he asked the son, what food does your mother eat? And then the son said, we are vegetarians. Then he thought to himself, vegetarians don't have to be suffering from malnutrition. So he asked the son, what exactly does your mother eat? And the son said, we take vegetables. And he asked the son, what type of vegetables? Then the son went to the back and brought some vegetables to show him. Actually, already stale vegetables, no more green. Because to them, to some people in India, plant life, plants including vegetables have life. So when they are green, they have life. So they thought that it's not compassionate to take life. So green vegetables and fresh fruits you cannot eat. So they go to that stage where they suffer from malnutrition. So that is the Jains. Now, so what is Buddhist compassion? In our Buddha's teachings, the Buddha stressed that all his followers should keep the precepts. And the lay people, initially the Buddha taught that lay people should keep 7 precepts. Later it was modified to 5. And these 7 precepts are 3 precepts concerning the body and 4 concerning speech. And the aim of these precepts is not to harm other living beings. So like the 7 precepts, the first precept is not to kill, not to intentionally kill any living being, because life is the most precious thing to any living being. You can understand if somebody wanted to buy your life, say for $100 million, would you be willing to sell your life for even $1 billion? Maybe you won't, right? So if you take somebody's life, that person will not forgive you, especially human beings. Human beings know how to think. So if you are murdered, probably you think, if I become a ghost, come and haunt him. So as far as other beings concerned, they might not have this thought to take revenge, but still they have a lot of hatred for you. So in the next future lifetimes when we meet, and you meet this being will create problems for you. That's why some people they find a lot of obstacles in their life because they don't have enough loving kindness and compassion towards other beings. So the second precept is not to take what is not given, what does not belong to us. We don't want to take. And we find this not only practiced in Buddhism, even in Islam and Christianity. I was told that there are certain areas in China where the Islam is very strong. If you drop something on the ground, even money, it will not be stolen. It will be either taken up and pinned on the wall or on the tree or something. And the people there, they are quite secure and safe. And they sleep with their doors unlocked, with their windows unlocked. So when people have precepts, then everybody is safe and secure. So this is the second precept. Now if we take what is not given to us, and then the natural result of it is that in future people will also take your things and will steal your things. That's why some people, when they employ workers and maids, their things tend to get stolen. And now the third precept is not to commit adultery, sexual misconduct. If you do that, then you're likely to be reborn as an animal. Even as an animal, you probably get castrated. It was mentioned by an Arahant Bhikkhuni, and she contemplated her past life and the Therikata verses of the Arahants. So that is three bodily precepts, and then verbal precepts, not to lie, not to carry tales to cause disharmony. For example, you hear A talking of B, you don't go and tell B, last night A said such and such a thing, and then it causes A and B to quarrel. So we promote harmony, not disharmony. The third verbal precept is not to use coarse speech, rough speech, vulgar speech and all that. Because if you use that, people get angry with you. And then even if you try to teach, people will not accept. And the fourth precept is, fourth verbal precept is not to engage in idle gossip. So these 7 precepts were taught by the Buddha so that we do not harm other living beings. So that's the first thing about Buddhist compassion. And we find in the monk's precepts that the monk has so much more precepts to keep, 227 precepts. And some of them we may think are very minor. For example, not to dig the ground that has life. Because if we dig the ground, sometimes we cut the worm, all types of worms and insects and white ants, etc. in the ground. So we cause suffering to them. And also, but if there's no life in the ground, a monk can dig, for example, sand, stone, clay, soil without any life. And also like cutting plants and trees, not because they have life. Actually, originally the Buddha did not make this precept, and then some of the other people who belong to other religions, they got angry with Buddhist monks for doing that because they thought that plants have life. So the Buddha made this precept to destroy plant life. But then the Buddha also said that plant life is the abode for fairies, tree spirits. There are spirits that live in the trees, and they live in different parts of the trees. The Buddha said there are some that like to live in the leaves, there are some that like to live in the flowers, there are some that like to live in the branches, there are some that like to live on the bark of the tree, there are some that like to live in the heart of the tree, heart root, and some like to live in the roots of the trees, and they kind of belong to different groups. So when the tree is small, it's most likely that the fairies are small. So when you destroy small trees, there's no consequence. But now and then, sometimes people cut down big trees and they suffer. As a monk, people come and tell me their problems. And sometimes I hear they say, I've got this old mango tree at the back of my house. So they all not bearing fruit, so we ordered it be cut. As a result of that, sometimes they experience accidents. Sometimes they get sick. And the worst case, I was told, was this lady who cut down that old mango tree and became mentally deranged. So you can see that there are a lot of spirits around us that we don't see with the human eye. But because the Buddha could see, then the Buddha said we should be careful. It's not that you cannot cut down the tree, but if you need to cut down the old mango tree, then you should pay respect to it and tell the spirit that stays in the tree that you intend to cut it down, say in 3 days or 7 days time, and give it time to go and look for another tree to go and stay. For it to move house, you want to move house, so you have to look for a house, suitable house to stay. So if we give them that type of respect, then they are happy at least. Give them a bit of face, so they are also like us. So then they don't harm you. So monks' precepts, we have much more precepts to, in order not to harm living beings. That's why monks are supposed to be very harmless. And actually, the code of conduct for monks is very high. Of course, for some monks, they don't study the suttas and don't study the Vinaya, and they don't understand. For example, the monks are supposed to get angry also if somebody gets angry with you, and it's pretty hard to practice. But over the years, if a monk trains in the suttas and the Vinaya, then year by year he improves. That's why the Buddha calls the spiritual path a gradual training. When a monk disrobes, the Buddha says he forsakes the training. So that is concerning precepts. Then the second one is the Buddha said that we should practice metta. Metta means to be kind in our actions, in our speech, in our thoughts, to all other beings. And to be kind to others, we also not only should be kind inside, but we should also be seen to be kind. In other words, our body language, our verbal language, people can sense, right? So, but then of course also we should use wisdom also, because if you are too kind, people climb over your head, right? So, like for example, the Buddha, he sometimes scolded his monks, those who did not practice according to the teachings, or who acted in foolish ways. The Buddha will call them foolish man, stupid man. So there's this story, sometimes we read in the Buddhist magazine about this Naga. Naga is a fierce serpent, snake spirit. So initially he used to be so fierce that he would kill human beings and all that. So one day the monk went up the hill and then he sort of taught him the Dhamma until he learned to practice the Dhamma. So he thought he wanted to practice loving kindness. So whenever people came, he did not harm all the human beings that passed by his hill. Because these nagas, even these big snakes in the hills, they have their area where they stay, and they don't like human beings to come intrude upon their area. Because human beings come, we cut the trees, clear the land, all that. They find it very difficult to find food. So when human beings came near him, he stopped killing them, fighting very fiercely. So the village boys came and found the areas changed. So they started to tease him, and they were surprised also he didn't kill them or belch out his smoke and all this. So they went nearer and he still did not react. Then they started to take stones and throw at him, and he did not react. They went to take sticks and beat him until he became bloody. Then he went to complain to the old monk. See, you asked me to act like this. Yeah, act like this. See the consequence? Then the old monk told him, I told you not to kill living beings. I did not say you cannot belch or smoke. But sometimes people too much. Sometimes we have to show our anger. Because later I mentioned, Buddha says sometimes we use the soft way, it doesn't work. We need to use the hard way. Okay, so that is metta, but to be tinged with wisdom. Third one is charity or dana, generosity, helping others, basically, like giving what other people need. Most of the time it's probably material things like food, money and all that, but not only this, but sometimes some people need kind words when they are suffering. You need to console them, so you speak some kind words to them. Sometimes some friend is sick, then we need to visit them to show our sympathy. Sometimes somebody has a loss, for example, the son or the daughter passed away, and then we need to go and see them, console them, take them out, to forget, etc. And of giving, the highest gift, the Buddha says, is the giving of the Dhamma, because the Dhamma benefits us the most. Basically, every living being, the Buddha says, needs food to survive. This may sound strange to us. Even devas also, heavenly beings, also they need food. Even hell beings also need food. All beings, all beings need food to survive. So, if somebody comes to you and he needs food, so you give that person food. But then tomorrow he's hungry again, he comes to you again, and you have to give him food again. And the day after he comes to you, and you keep giving him food. Of course, if you can do it for the rest of your life, it's okay. But a bit bothersome, isn't it? So it's easier if you teach him a skill, how to use his hands to cari makan, earn a living. Right? So you teach him a skill, he is able to go and work and survive on his own. Then life is easier for you, isn't it? But even if he has a skill to find a livelihood, that only helps him for this life. And if he does not realize that he is poor because of his karma, then he's walking the same path. And after he passes away, he'll again be suffering, right? But if we teach him the Dhamma, then the Dhamma is very practical. Teaches how to not only to find happiness in the next life, it also teaches how to find happiness here and now. That we have to work. Whatever we want, we have to work for it. Not go and buy Ampat Eko or play to Dato Kong and all that. So if you teach him the Dhamma, he learns how to survive now and also to create merit so that in the future lifetimes he can also get what he needs. So that's why the Dhamma is the highest offering. And the Dhamma can help us to reduce our suffering and to eventually eliminate all suffering. So that's why the Dhamma is the highest gift. Now the fourth one is a monk's lifestyle. You know, the Buddha, before he was enlightened, he used to go to the forest and practice meditation and strive in the spiritual path, get out of samsara. And after the Buddha was enlightened, he still lived his life in the forest. He didn't come up to the big cities to be famous. He lived in the forest, although he didn't go here and there to preach the Dhamma. And in one of the suttas, the Buddha said, there are two reasons why he continues to live in the forest. One is he has a happy abiding, nobody to disturb his peace. He can do what he likes, meditate when he wants to meditate. You see, even when he wants to answer a call of nature, also nobody to stop him. He can do it easily. So the first one is a happy abiding. Second one, the Buddha says, out of compassion for future generations. This a lot of people don't understand why out of compassion for future generations the Buddha lived in the forest. The Buddha is trying to show us that the way out of samsara is to practice the holy life in the forest, to give up worldly things, because worldly things, even though they give us much happiness and enjoyment in this life, but eventually, if you attach to it, it gives you suffering at the end. It's what the Chinese say, Tao Ti Boi Ko, right? The beginning is sweet, the end is bitter. So a lot of people are like that. Worldly people, they want happiness here and now, but in the end, they reap suffering. So the Buddha is showing us the way out of samsara, and he is trying to tell us that the way out of samsara is to give up worldly things, retreat from the world. I wish a lot of monks now don't practice. During the Buddha's time, there were no town monasteries. All the monasteries were in the forest. So also, the monk's lifestyle, you find that the monk goes up, arms round, the monks, even the robes he wears, different from lay people, shaves his head bald, so that he doesn't need to look handsome or pretty. It's a very simple lifestyle. And giving up worldly pleasures, etc., is showing the way to actually out of suffering and to attain happiness. The monk's lifestyle is Tao Ko Boi Ti. Beginning is suffering, bitter. In the end, it's sweet. When I first became a monk, there was a lot of suffering for me. I had a reasonably good lifestyle, and before I became a monk. And after I became a monk, I went to a very strict monastery in America, where you take one vegetarian meal a day. You have to work the whole day. And in the morning, when we start working at 8 o'clock in the morning, it's on an empty stomach. No coffee to drink, no tea to drink, nothing, no bread to eat, just water to drink, and then we had to start working. And the work was pretty heavy. Sometimes I had to carry Buddha images from Taiwan. I had to plant apple trees, plant the big bamboo. And my weight went down from 120 to 96. And monks there were very unfriendly. American people, like Ajahn Sumedo mentioned, maybe not in the talk, when we talked to him in the room, he said Americans are very direct. Tell you in the face, you do something wrong. I got scolding every day. And I told him, one of the monks even scolded me 4-letter word. American monk. So blunt. So it was a lot of mental torture for me. So much so that I broke down and cried one day. In the first 1 year, I was a lot of suffering. I eventually got used to it. So that is a monk's life. Beginning, a lot of suffering, but slowly you get used to it. When I came back from America, I went to Thailand. Then we go on arms round, beg for our food, and the food is not very good. And at one time I was staying with a group of Teochew monks. Teochew monks like to drink very thick Chinese tea. Every day at 4 p.m. They will make that tea. This is a small kettle, they stuff it full of tea leaves. So that don't drink with them. It's not so nice. So every day they call me to drink with them. But I was not born a Teochew, so I didn't have a Teochew stomach. After a while I got gastric. So I came back to Malaysia and this gastric also was bothering me, and I was staying in the cave. So then I tried to take cheese because in Thai tradition it's allowed. But I found cheese didn't suit me. It's too oily, too salty. So there was a time when there's a lot of dukkha. Eventually you get over it, as the Buddha said in the sutras. So now, year by year, you get more used to it. It's becoming sweeter and sweeter. So, these Pacheka Buddhas, a lot of people don't know that Buddhas, 99.9% of Buddhas are Pacheka Buddhas. 99.9% of Buddhas refuse to teach. Because if you try to teach, sometimes people don't understand, people don't accept the teaching, sometimes people talk bad about you. And Jesus Christ got crucified because he was trying to teach a new religion. Because his standard was higher than the previous teachings. The previous teachings was an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. He said, so somebody slaps you, you offer him the other cheek to slap. So it was a sort of a revolution he was trying to create, but people could not accept him and crucified him on the cross. That's why 99.9% of Buddhas refuse to teach. But are they selfish? Are they not compassionate? Even though they don't teach, they are still compassionate. They show the way out of samsara. They still come on arms round to give the chance for people to get married, and also show other people the way out of samsara. So a monk's lifestyle is compassion. Sometimes some books say that the most compassionate being is the bodhisattva. Cannot be, because the bodhisattva still has a self. Bodhisattva is not totally enlightened, but an arahant is totally enlightened. An arahant includes the Buddha. The word arahant comes from the word arahatta. Ara and hatta. Ara is the spokes of the wheel of samsara. Hatta is broken. Then arahatta or arahant is one who has broken the cycle of rebirth, so will never be reborn. And there are 3 types of arahants. One is a Sammasambuddha, another one is a Pacheka Buddha, the third one is a arahant disciple. Buddhas are actually self-enlightened arahants. Buddhas are actually Arya from the past life, and then when they get reborn in their last life, there's no more teaching in the world. Like our Buddha, he was probably a Sakadagamin. So he struggled very hard because there was no more Dhamma in the world until he became enlightened. So that is the Buddha, self-enlightened Arahant. So the most compassionate beings are Arahants because they have no more self. When they have no more self, there is no selfishness at all. They see all beings as the same as them. So how can they not be compassionate? Okay, now I'll talk about what sometimes seems to be cruel and what sometimes seems to be compassionate. Is not exactly so. Okay, the first one is sometimes we have to be cruel to be kind, especially parents with their children. If the children needs a spanking, give them a spanking. That's actually kind, it's not cruel. Because the small boy, when you spank him, he will not think that you are kind to him, but that is actually being more kind than unkind. Now, the Buddha said that if a person conducts himself well in body, speech and mind, then even though he says he hates himself, actually he loves himself. But if a person misconducts himself in body, speech and mind, even though he thinks that he loves himself, actually he hates himself because he's causing himself suffering, either now or in future. For example, if a person breaks the precepts, for example, he cheats, he thinks to benefit himself, he cheats the company of millions of dollars to benefit himself. But he's actually harming himself, not benefiting himself. And he's going to suffer for a long time in the future. So such a person does not love himself. So the Buddha also said that in teaching others, we should use a soft approach. And if it doesn't work, we should use the hard approach. And if necessary, then the soft and hard approach. So there was this sutta called the Kc Sutra. This Kc was a horse trainer, a well-known horse trainer. And one day he came to see the Buddha, and the Buddha knew that he was a horse trainer, so he could discipline horses so well. So Buddha asked him, how do you discipline the horses? How do you train them? Then he says he uses the soft approach, meaning they like to eat sugar cane, he give them sugar cane, and they like to eat sweets, whatever food they like to eat, he gives them and coaxes them to do whatever he instructs them to do. Then he says if this doesn't work, then he uses the hard approach, either whip them or take the goat stick and poke into their skin. And then the Buddha asks, what if the soft approach and the hard approach doesn't work? Then he said, in that case, I destroy the horse, in order that it not bring shame to the stable, right? His master. Then he asked the Buddha, Bhagavan, you are also a trainer, a trainer of men. How do you tame your men? Then the Buddha said, I also use the soft approach, I also use the hard approach. Then he asked, what is the soft approach? Then the Buddha says, I explain what is good karma, what is good conduct in body, speech and mind. And I explain the result of that is rebirth in the heavens or in the human realm to enjoy. Then what is the hard approach? Then the Buddha said, I explain about the three evil karmas, body, speech and mind, and how these three evil karmas bring you to rebirth in the woeful planes, in the ghost, animal and hell realm. That is frightening. But that is a hard approach, and also both the soft and hard approach. Then he asked the Buddha, what if this doesn't work? Then the Buddha said, then I kill the man. Then he said, Bhagavan, you are Arhan, Sambuddha, surely you don't kill a man. And then the Buddha said, yes, in the Aryan discipline, it is death to a man when his teachers or his companions in the holy life refuse to teach him the Dhamma. So, if you have no opportunity to learn the Dhamma, then you are not progressing in the spiritual path. Then you might as well be dead. You are just like a dead man. How can hòa con Kc cả vô? Because you are wasting your life. Buddha says, if you live 100 years and you don't practice the spiritual path, it is better you live one day and practice the spiritual path. In fact, if you live 100 years and you don't practice the spiritual path, you are going backwards. Because every day in our human existence, we are using our blessings. Day after day, we use our blessings. 100 years later, you're already in the red. The bankrupt business. So that is death in the Aryan discipline. So that's why if parents, if children, they need to be taught the hard way, give them the hard way. Sometimes they need to be, you need to use the software. You do your homework. Tomorrow I bring you to McDonald's or something. So give the spanking when it's necessary. Nowadays, the other day, in fact, somebody told me, a lady told me, the husband said, Bhante, I see is to spank the child. He's out of date. He's in the long ago time. He said, nowadays nobody spank their children. The father said. But then you see in the West, they don't spank their children. What do? They ask the child to go up to his room and lock the room, don't come up. Right? That's one way. Another way, favorite TV program, cannot see. These are ways and means to show them you mean business. Right? So that is, need to be cruel, to be kind. Now the second thing I like to talk about is in the suttas. One day, this big, huge deva by the name of Rahu, is an asura, very huge. One day he caught the moon deva, Chandima, he caught the moon deva, was about to kill the moon deva. I don't know why, maybe he was to eat him up or what. So this moon deva called out to the Buddha for help. Then the Buddha is not always in deep samadhi, so the Buddha happened to know. And then the Buddha responded by talking very loudly to this Rahu, Sasura, asking Rahu to release this Chandima Deva. He said, Buddha has compassion for beings, and this Deva is called out to my name, so you release him. So this Rahu, when he heard this loud sound of the Buddha, quickly released this moon Deva and flew back to his Asura heaven and was trembling from head to foot, shaking all over. So the Asura king saw him and asked him, what happened to you? Why are you shaking like a leaf? Then he told him what happened just now. Then he said, if I had not released that Chandima Deva, my head would have split into 7 pieces. So you see, when the Buddha gives instruction like that, and they don't eat it, the head can split into 7 pieces. Is that being unkind? That's not being unkind. Buddha is being compassionate to this Chandima Deva, and he's not causing this Rahu's head to split. If the Rahu did not respond to the Buddha's instruction, his head would have split. That is his own doing, right? So you see, why? From here you can see maybe why 99.9% of Pachika Buddhas don't teach. If they teach and you don't listen to the Pachika Buddha, creating very bad karma. That's why in the suttas, whenever the Buddha teaches the Dhamma, anybody he teaches to will become a stream enterer. If that person cannot become a stream enterer, the Buddha will not teach him. Because the Buddha teach him, he doesn't become a stream enterer, he's creating very, very bad karma. right? He does not believe what the Buddha says, right? So that is, and the same thing happened another time with the Sun Deva. Sun Deva also was caught by this huge Rahu, and the same thing happened. Now, in the suttas, we find that one of the previous Buddhas was called Kakusanda Buddha. And because he was preaching the Dhamma and bringing people out of samsara, Mara, Satan, was very angry, wanted the Buddha to stop his work. So he tried ways and means to stop the Buddha, and did not work. Whenever he tried, the Buddha would tell his disciples, Mara is trying to do this, Mara is trying to do that, so he don't react. So he found that he could not succeed. He got so angry. One day when Kakusanda was walking on arms round, this most senior disciple behind him, this Mara got into somebody's body, took a big stone and came from behind and whacked the monk from the back until his head was bleeding all over with blood. And Kakusanda Buddha probably thought that's enough. Turned around and stared at him, what is known as the elephant look. Stared at him, and immediately Mara died and landed in hell. Is the Buddha being unkind? The Buddha probably thought, you stop here and now. And probably he did not want to stop. He probably wanted to do some more. And he immediately died. So in the same case, it's like just now, the Buddha gave an instruction. He stopped doing it. He doesn't want to stop. So he has to reap the natural karma of going to hell. But it's better for him to go to hell now, instead of creating some more evil karma against the Buddha and his disciples. Then he will go to hell for a much longer time, right? So, who was this person? He went to hell, was reborn in hell. Then he said that he had a fish head and a human body in hell. And after suffering for a long time in hell, he came back to the earth, to the human realm, and was reborn as Moggallana. Moggallana the Great. Okay. So the Moggallana was talking about his previous life. But sometimes we see like this, we don't have the wisdom, we think, this person acts in such a way, he's not compassionate. It's not so. Now, another thing I'd like to say is that in one of the suttas, the Buddha said that, I think somebody asked him, is it better if somebody does something praiseworthy, we praise him, and somebody does something wrong, unpraiseworthy or some big fault, then instead of saying the truth that this person did wrong and all that, that we are more compassionate now. We don't speak ill of others. The Buddha said no. Buddha said, if somebody is worthy of praise, we praise him. If somebody is worthy of dispraise, then we dispraise him. The Buddha was very blunt, like all Aryas. Black is black, white is black. Black is black, white is white. They don't bokong ing siu hua. Don't speak sweet words. So like Kassapa. Kassapa is not really popular with lay people because he's very blunt. One day in the Vinaya books, this Venerable Ananda, at that time Venerable Ananda was more than 80 years old after the Buddha had passed away, and he was walking with a big group of disciples, about 1,000 monk disciples, and going here and going there. And Kassapa scolded him, "You small boy, what are you doing, walking around all over the place with 1,000 disciples and making it difficult for the lay people to feed you? Because if you walk with 1,000 monks, you go to a place to ask for food, it's difficult for the lay people to feed." So you see, he's so blunt. Then Kassapa and Venerable Ananda said, "Bhante, I I'm old already, my hair is already white. And he called me a small boy. Again, he shouted at me, small boy. So you see, Arahant also can speak like that because they are very blunt. So in the same way, in the suttas, we find that the Buddha scolded this external ascetic leader called Makali Gosala Buddha. The Buddha said that fool, Makali Gosala Buddha, teaching Dhamma. Because this fellow, this Makali Gosala Buddha, he says there is no karma. When you say there is no karma, people can do what they like, right? They're not afraid of any consequences. So the Buddha said this fool Makali is leading people into the woeful plains. Just like a fish trap. You make all this bamboo, you lead all the fish into this, what do you call it? What's the name for it? Pukat or something? Kebab. They cannot come out of it. So Buddha said the same way, this fool is causing people to go into the woeful plains. So the Buddha also was very blunt. So also, the Buddha also said in the Anguttara Nikaya that what is Dhamma, we should say is Dhamma. What is what are Dhamma against the Dhamma, we should also speak out. The Buddha said we should not be afraid to speak out. But then if you speak out very often, you are unpopular. So the Buddha also was unpopular actually during his days. That's why in the sutta, the Buddha said, I don't quarrel with the world quarrels with me. He who speaks the Dhamma does not quarrel with the world. So we have to be blunt. Now another one I'd like to talk about is some people like to rescue animals. That is quite good, but then it's one of those things that you can't help very much. We have this SPCA, Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Their aim is very good, very noble. In England, they call it Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. They rescue the dogs and the cats and all the animals that are endangered. And they keep them, hoping that somebody will take it and take care of it in their homes. But then, you know what is happening? Like in SPCA in Kuala Lumpur, they rescue and they have so many cats and dogs in the pen that they cannot manage. So if you bring them a cat or a dog, after a few days, like 1 week, nobody comes to take it, they will put it to sleep. So when they put it to sleep, what are they doing? They are creating very evil karma. If it comes to that stage where they have to put it to sleep, it's better don't do. Right? It's just like some people, they want to pray to heaven to get married, and they go and slaughter an animal and pray. They want to get married, but they are getting demarried, the Buddha said. So in the same way, people like this SPCA, they want to get married, but actually they are getting demarried. I have one supporter whose cousin works in the SPCA. She went to work there because she loves animals, kind to animals. But after working there, she finds she has to tell the worker which animal to put to sleep. And every time she does it, her tears in her eyes, she simply point this animal, that animal. So if it comes to that stage, don't do it. The other thing is, some people think Spain is cruel. A few months ago, there's one lady from Perlis phoned me, and she said there were 2 stray female dogs outside her house. So out of kindness, she took them and fed them, and eventually became her dogs. And every now and then, they give birth. She has to go and find people to give the puppies to, and after some time, people scared of her. Always approaching with the puppies, they see her also run away. So much so, she said they lost what to do. So her friends, told her what? Friends say, we beside them, cannot spare. You bring it to the marketplace, go and release it. You will find food in the marketplace. Can a dog find food in the marketplace? Even if there's food in the rubbish bin, you have broken glass, They have nails and all that. And then, dogs have their territory. If you bring a dog to another dog's territory, you'll get bitten. So very often these stray dogs get bitten all over. And it's very common to see a stray dog with a wound at the back, big wound with a lot of maggots. The maggots are eating at the flesh, it's in great pain. That's what happens if you release a dog. So how can you release a dog? So the most compassionate way is to spay the dog. Don't be afraid, I told her. It's not cruel to spay a dog. How much pain? Even human beings also go and spay themselves, isn't it? So that they don't give birth anymore, isn't it? Not only women, men also do it nowadays. Right? So what's compassionate about it? In fact, that's the most compassionate way. In Timor, where our monastery is, we have a lot of dogs all around because we have a lot of these fish ponds, and they keep the dogs so people don't come and steal the fish. But they never spay the dogs, and they multiply so much. And then every now and then you hear the female, the bitch on heat and gets bitten by all other dogs. Always crying. And I think that's pretty cruel. Our dogs are spayed and they live comfortably. They never get bothered by other dogs until they're so fat. So spaying is not cruel. And then nowadays in Mahayana Buddhists like to practice liberation of animals. Also, that was not encouraged by the Buddha during the Buddha's time. Nobody practiced liberation of animals. Because I've been in Mahayana Buddhism for 9 years and I've seen a lot of liberation of animals. And I find it's not really practical. Because a lot of times, for example, birds, when they release the birds, they've been kept in the cages for so long, either they don't know how to fly, or I've seen sometimes they fly only about 10 feet. Some can fly higher. But there was one time when I was in Lunas and somebody came and said the sister is dying of cancer, so she wants to she wants to liberate 3 pigeons. She brought 3 pigeons. So he wanted me to liberate, so I released the pigeons. One fell to the ground. Second one flew up about 10 feet. Third one flew up about 20 feet. So the one that fell to the ground, we had to catch it and put it in the cage. The next day, the one about 10 feet fell to the ground. Because I had no food to eat the whole day, so I was so weak, fell to the ground. So we saw the cat coming, quickly got it, put it in the cage. The day after that, the one 20 feet up there fell to the ground. Because they have been in the cage so long, they don't know how to find food. There's a time also, some people, when I was living on Penang Hill in the cave, somebody brought pigeons also to release. And some flew, and some dare not fly out also, want to stay in the cage. They feel safer in the cage. And I've seen also when I was in America, they release a lot of birds. 2 days later, we find the birds' feathers on the ground. Because there's a lot of eagles around. And these pigeons, they don't know where to hide. So they are easy prey for the eagles. And sometimes they release the tortoises. They buy the tortoises, they release in the river. And then a few weeks later, you find the shell of the tortoise. Because it's not used to that place, it doesn't know how to find food in that place, and the place is so rocky, and it's not the right place to release it. Tortoises, they need a place where there's a lot of plant life, shelter. There's no plant life there. All the time I was staying in Seattle, they released one tortoise in the garden, thinking it would be safe in the garden. A few days later, I smelled it, corpse. Got killed by a badger. So a lot of the times, liberation is not practical. Of course, if you see somebody about to slaughter a sikachua, iguana or something, you can buy and liberate it. So that is, and the last one is meat eating. A lot of people think that it is cruel to eat meat, but the Buddha did not encourage vegetarianism because the Buddha was very practical. In fact, one of his disciples, Devadatta, asked the Buddha to make a rule so that all monks should only eat vegetarian food, and the Buddha said no. The Buddha said, meat that has three conditions is pure. If you do not see, you do not hear, and you do not suspect that the animal was purposely killed for you, then there's no evil karma in eating that meat. Because when we eat the meat, for example, you go to the market and you buy pork, it's already slaughtered, or fish already dead. You're actually not causing the death of those animals. But a lot of people think because we eat meat, then people slaughter more animals. But they fail to realize that even if the whole world became vegetarians, there will still be slaughter of animals, killing of animals. Because, for example, now dogs without licenses, the government employs people to kill them, because if they multiply too much, then they will have rabies and they'll bite people and all that. So the government finds it necessary. In fact, I think last year, in China, there was a place where the dogs were biting people and they had to shoot all the dogs. So the same with other animals. If we allow them to multiply, they'll multiply so fast that they'll be eating all the crops and walking on the streets and all that. So they will still be eliminated. So only thing is the world itself is cruel. We cannot change the fact that the world is cruel. That's why the Buddha said the world is dukkha. In fact, in the Bible says that the world is cruel. So the Buddha only told us to be careful not to have the direct karma of killing. The indirect karma we cannot help. Even staying in a house, you are contributing to more housing estates being created. When they want to create a housing estate, they have to bulldoze the land, clear the land. A lot of animals die. A lot of animals cannot survive. Because you want to use electricity, government builds dams. And when they build dams, the river is flooded. A lot of animals die. Same, because you want to use household items. Then factories are made and they have to clear the forests, etc. Now this argument that because we eat animals, more animals are slaughtered. If that is valid, then we cannot sit in cars, we cannot drive cars, because according to statistics, every day 2,000 human beings are killed on the roads every day, and countless animals. So if we make more cars and more vehicles, more people will be killed, right? So are you contributing the death to more people? In fact, I thought of one simile. If there's a serial killer and then around and he has killed many people, and then all the people in the town be afraid to go out at night, and they ask the police to catch the man. So after much investigation, that man is caught. Then he's tried and then sentenced to death. And then he's hanged, for example. Now, this man has to die. Okay, who has the biggest evil karma? If you really think about it, it's actually the hangman. The hangman who actually hangs him. The second is the judge. Of course, the hangman can say, I'm only cari makan to feed my wife and children. I didn't sentence him to death. The judge sentenced him to death. And then the judge will say, I only sentenced I didn't do the act. You were the one who did the act. So the second most evil karma is the judge. Policeman? Policeman, no evil karma. How about you? Actually, he has to die because of all of you, right? To safeguard all of you, he has to die. So you all got sin. Ultimately, it's for all of you that he has to die. But you have no evil karma, even though you contribute to his death. So in the same way, when an animal is killed to be is killed to feed human beings. The most evil karma is the person who does a slaughter. Person who slaughters a chicken or slaughters the pig, etc. The second most evil karma is the person who rears the animal to be slaughtered. Because from the beginning, he already has this idea in mind to sell it to be slaughtered, right? But the person who eats the slaughtered meat has no evil karma. In the same way, well, it's a very good simile. So I shall end here.
Sattha deva manusanam Buddho bhagavati Iti piso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho Vijaccarana sampanno Sugato lokavidu anuttaro Purisa Dhammasarati.
Okay, there's no question for the time being. I'd like to say something. But not everybody can practice the spiritual path. Why? Because we are all at different levels. Spiritual maturity is different. So those who are spiritually mature, ready to practice the spiritual path, they will practice the spiritual path either as a monastic or as a lay person. But there are some people, their blessings is so low that they cannot practice. They try to meditate and all that, their mind's very disturbed, they can't do it. Such people, they need to create more good karma by doing good deeds. For example, there are some people who work with this Serchi organization, do charity, help others. And some people do social work and all that. That's good. If you can't practice the spiritual path. But if you can, don't waste your human life. Because human life is very difficult to get. And this work that you do to help animals and all that, actually the merit is very little. In the long run, it doesn't help you very much. And you can't help these animals very much also. That's why the Buddha said in one of the suttas, the Buddha said a long time ago, he was a Brahmin who did a lot of dana. So much dana, he said that he gave away 84,000 buckets of gold, 84,000 buckets of silver, 84,000 buckets of precious stones, and 84,000 chickens, lamb, cattle, etc., and clothing and cloth and all these things. And the food and the drinks that he gave away, he said, flowed like the river. And he said, in spite of all that, his merit was negligible, very small. Why? Because the people who received it were all putujana, no Arya around, all putujana. So the Buddha said it would have been greater merit if he had just given to one stream enterer, meaning a first path attainer. And the Buddha said even giving dana to 100 stream attainers, first path attainers, is less than the merit of giving to one sotapanna, one fruit attainer. So in other words, this first path attainer doesn't exist for one moment, for only one moment. He exists for many years. That's why the Buddha said that you can do dana to a first path attainer, but even you do it to 100 stream attainers is less than the merit of giving to one fruit attainer, the Sotapanna. And giving dana to 100 Sotapannas is less than the merit of giving to one second path attainer, etc. So you see from here that actually if we help all these animals and all these putujana, the merit actually is not very great. And since it is so difficult to get a human body, if you can meditate, if you can practice the spiritual path, don't go and do these things because in the end it doesn't help very much. It's not that it's not good, it's good. But then for yourself, if you pity others, you must also pity yourself. Right? You continue to do this, you'll be in the round of rebirths for a very, very, very long time. If you have the chance to hear the true Dhamma, try to get to attain the stream entry. Once you attain the stream entry, you've got the most precious thing you can get in this world. So that you're on your way out of suffering, out of samsara. So only those people who can't practice meditation, who can't hear the sutta. There's some people's minds are so disturbed, they cannot hear the suttas. Some time ago, many years ago, I had one old supporter told me about this auntie. This auntie had such a nasty temper, was such an unpleasant person. Partly because of the distribution of property. They had a grudge against the other relatives, always cursing their relatives. So because she was such an unpleasant person, so nasty, that the children in her old age put her in the nursing home. And even in the nursing home, she get into tantrums. So rage, such a rage, and nobody can control her. So one day when she was so old, about to die already, she got into one of these rage. And they had to call the doctor and give her a jab, tranquilizer, so that she could sleep. And then they phoned the children to come. So 3 children went to that nursing home. And this old supporter of mine, he happened to drive past the nursing home. He saw the cousin's cars there. And before I come to this, actually because this old lady had such a nasty temper and was such an unpleasant person, this old supporter of mine tried to help the auntie to give her Dhamma talks to listen and to ask her to do some chanting, simple chanting, just Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sammasambuddhassa. But when she tried to do the chanting, she tried and tried, and she could not even chant Namo Tassa Bhagavato. She tried until the tears came down, and she told the supporter, I said, don't ask me to chant, I cannot chant. Karma so bad, I cannot even chant the Buddha's name. So, okay, coming back to that part now, where this old supporter of mine drove past the nursing home and saw the cousin's cars there. So he stopped the car, ran into the nursing home, thought the auntie had died. I went into the room, there were a few of them in the room, or 6 of them in the room, and he saw the auntie there, got a shock, because the 2 teeth came out, the 2 Dracula teeth came out so long. And they tried to close the mouth, they could not close the mouth, because the teeth were so long. And they could see the teeth for 2 days, until she died. The moment she died, the teeth disappeared. That means she had already turned into that type of ghost, that fierce ghost, because of her character so fierce. So you see, such people like this, don't ask them to meditate. Wasting your breath. Even chanting also cannot. So the only thing we can do is to do good deeds. So some people are so low that they have to do good deeds to progress spiritually. But if you can progress spiritually, don't waste your time. Our life is very short.